Okay, ready to dive into something really wild.
Let's do it.
Today, we're tackling the Anunnaki. You guys sent in some fascinating stuff. YouTube videos, ancient texts, even biblical commentaries, all trying to figure out if powerful beings, maybe even ancient astronauts, shaped humanity's story.
What's amazing is how much debate there is around it.
Yeah.
Really shows how much we want to understand our place in the universe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One YouTube video, Biblical God and Fallen Angels Exposed, jumps right in, claiming the Anunnaki created us. They say it completely goes against traditional biblical interpretation, which I have to admit makes it pretty intriguing.
Makes you wonder. What's interesting is how this video uses Sumerian mythology, mentioning ancient texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Atrahasis epic. These stories feature the Anunnaki, often as godlike figures coming down from the heavens. You see this idea in a lot of cultures, powerful beings messing with humans, changing things on Earth. Like think about Zeus and the Olympians in Greek mythology or Ra and Osiris in Egyptian mythology. It's a common theme, don't you think?
It is. No matter how different the cultures are, those stories always get to people. And this video really pushes this idea that the Anunnaki craved worship and offerings. It's like they're saying these beings were obsessed with human attention, wanting us to serve them.
Yeah, this idea of gods needing to be worshipped is everywhere in history and cultures. It's like this power dynamic where humans have to appease these higher beings.
Yeah.
The ancient Egyptians, for example, they had all those rituals and offerings for their gods. And the ancient Greeks, they believed in making the gods happy with sacrifices and festivals. So when we look at the Anunnaki like this, it's a familiar story, even if the details and the characters are different.
And the video claims the Anunnaki were the source of many of humanity's early advancements, like agriculture, writing, even astronomy. They make it sound like these gifts were given to a less advanced human race.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting. It's tempting to look back at these big leaps in human development and think, maybe there was some outside force helping us along. But we also have to think about how those advancements might show how clever humans actually were. For example, agriculture wasn't just a sudden thing. It took time. Observation, experimentation, innovation, all because our ancestors wanted to survive and thrive. Saying it was all the Anunnaki ignores how capable early humans actually were.
So they're basically saying humans couldn't have progressed without some divine intervention.
Yeah, exactly. And you see this a lot when people talk about ancient mysteries. It's this question of where we draw the line between saying things happened because of outside forces versus recognizing how innovative our ancestors were. Really makes you think.
For sure. Now, let's bring the Bible into this. The video claims those sons of God mentioned in Genesis 6, they're actually the Anunnaki. They even suggest Yahweh, the God of the Bible, is one of them. Pretty wild.
Sons of God. Talk about a phrase that sparked endless debates. The book of Genesis, especially chapter 6, describes these beings coming down and interacting with humans, leading to the birth of the Nephilim. And this video takes a pretty strong stance, saying these figures are the Anunnaki.
It is a strong stance, especially since other things you've given us have different interpretations. Dante Fortson, in his YouTube video, Nephilim Giants, The Lines of Sethite Theory, Genesis 6 Introduction, says the sons of God are fallen angels who mated with human women, which is how we got the Nephilim.
Right, and that's where those biblical commentaries you sent are helpful. The Enduring Word Bible commentary on Genesis 6 backs up the fallen angel interpretation. It uses verses like Jude 1.6 and 1 Peter 3.19-20, which describe angels who abandoned their proper dwelling and gave themselves up to sexual immorality.
So we've got two very different interpretations. We've got the theory connecting the sons of God to the Anunnaki using Old Sumerian mythology, and then the more traditional biblical interpretation linking them to fallen angels. It really shows how open to interpretation these ancient texts can be, right?
It does, and this is where it gets even more interesting as we look at the evidence supposedly supporting the Anunnaki theory.
So one thing that keeps coming up in these Anunnaki videos is this obsession with gold.
Right, it's like they're saying these beings traveled across the universe just to get rich.
Like some kind of cosmic gold rush.
Exactly. And the video, the complete story of the Anunnaki, really focuses on that.
Which, I mean, it makes you think about the significance of gold throughout history, right?
Absolutely. It wasn't just about stuff. It represented power, wealth, even divinity in some cultures. Maybe this whole Anunnaki gold obsession is just us projecting our own desires onto these supposed ancient astronauts.
It's possible, isn't it? Like, we're putting our values onto them. And speaking of values, a lot of these videos make the Anunnaki out to be kind of flawed, even ruthless.
For sure. They're often shown getting into conflicts, power struggles.
Love triangles.
Exactly. Just like the gods from a lot of old mythologies.
Like the Greek gods. They were famous for their jealousy and their rivalries, and let's not forget how terribly they treated humans sometimes.
Right. So this idea of the Anunnaki as flawed beings, having those human-like emotions, even though they're supposed to be super advanced aliens, it actually kind of fits with how we've imagined gods for centuries.
It does, and then there's the whole story of the Great Flood, right? A lot of these videos tie that into the Anunnaki narrative,
Oh
too.
yeah, the flood.
Hmm.
It seems to be a story that pops up in cultures all over the world, doesn't it?
It does. And the Anunnaki are often painted as being involved, even causing it.
Like puppet masters,
Totally. One video even talked about this evil wind that poisons the water.
which isn't in the Bible, right?
Nope, not at all.
Interesting. Sounds like they're trying to blend Sumerian mythology, which often has these destructive winds, with that more familiar biblical flood story.
Yeah, like they're creating one big unified theory of ancient history, and the Anunnaki are the stars of the show.
Main attraction.
And in their version, the Anunnaki are split on whether to warn humanity about the flood.
A real moral dilemma.
Right. Should they mess with humanity's fate or just let it happen?
That whole idea of divine intervention. Do these super advanced beings, if they even exist, have an obligation to protect us, even if it means changing our destiny?
It's a question a lot of religions and philosophies grapple with. And speaking of big questions, these videos love showing all these detailed animations of Anunnaki spaceships and technology.
Visually, they're stunning.
Oh, they're impressive. But is there anything that actually backs up these claims?
That's the big question, right? Ancient texts talk about things in the sky, phenomena that we might see as high-tech today. But those texts were written in a specific time and place. To say that every flying chariot or shining light in an ancient text is proof of alien spaceships, well, that might be stretching it a bit.
It's like we're looking at things from our modern perspective and can't help but impose that on the past. But some of these videos even claim that ancient structures, like the pyramids, were built with the help of the Anunnaki.
The pyramids.
Mm.
They never fail to capture the imagination.
Ever.
We still don't completely understand everything about how they were built. But to say that they were made solely because of aliens ignores how smart and skilled the ancient Egyptians were.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, oh, those primitive humans could never have built those on their own.
Exactly. And we see this a lot when we talk about ancient mysteries, right? We almost can't believe that our ancestors could do such amazing things without help from somewhere else.
Like we need something more, something bigger than ourselves to explain those wonders of the past.
Which is understandable, right?
Totally.
We've always wanted explanations for the unknown, for the things that make us feel awe. But when we're exploring these theories, we have to balance that sense of wonder with some critical thinking.
So how do we find that balance? How do we approach these ancient astronaut theories with both curiosity and a healthy dose of skepticism? It's amazing, though, how we can look back at ancient cultures, see what they achieved, pyramids, Stonehenge, these really complex systems of knowledge, and just feel awestruck. It's no wonder people come up with theories like the Anunnaki.
I agree. That Anunnaki story, mixing ancient stories with modern speculation, it really gets to that human need to understand our place in the cosmos. It's like, what if we're not alone? What if powerful beings shaped our world?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? Whether we see these beings as real or just symbols, the stories tell us a lot about ourselves, our hopes, our fears, our search for meaning.
Yeah, for sure. They're like a reflection of us in a way. But let's be real, not everyone believes in the Anunnaki. Some people think it's total fantasy.
Right, and we have to acknowledge those criticisms.
Mm-hmm.
Like any theory, especially one that goes against the grain, it's healthy to be skeptical. It makes us look at the evidence more carefully, come up with other explanations, and not just accept things blindly.
So how do we find that balance? Being open-minded, but also not easily fooled. Because some people say they've met extraterrestrials or just know these ancient astronaut theories are true.
It's tricky, right? We want to be open to new ideas, to things that challenge what we think we know. But we also have to use critical thinking and be smart about the evidence. Personal stories can be powerful, but they're subjective, you know? And while ancient texts give us a window into what people believed in the past, trying to interpret them through our modern lens can lead to misunderstandings.
It's like they say, just because we haven't found proof doesn't mean it's not out there. Just because we haven't found that smoking gun proving ancient aliens existed, it doesn't mean they weren't here. But it also doesn't mean we should just make stuff up.
Exactly. It's about approaching this with humility. We don't know everything. but we should stay open to the possibility of discovering something new. The search for truth, especially with ancient mysteries and the vastness of space, it's a journey, not a quick answer.
So where does that leave us? We've looked at the Anunnaki theory, the arguments, what people think about these mysterious beings. We talked about ancient texts, modern interpretations, even how much humans need to find meaning in the unknown. What's the takeaway for everyone listening?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Whether you believe in the Anunnaki or not, their story reminds us how endlessly curious we are, how much we want to understand our place in the universe.
And that search makes us ask big questions, explore new ideas, and try to make sense of the mysteries that are all around us. Maybe someday we'll find proof that answers the question, were we alone?
Until then, the exploration continues. And that's exciting, don't you think?
It is, well said. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the Anunnaki. Thanks for coming along on this journey into ancient mysteries and all those cosmic possibilities out there.